The sharp crack of a gunshot echoed down Maple Avenue on that crisp Monday morning in April. Emily Rhodes, the nation's beloved news anchor, collapsed on her own doorstep, a single bullet to the head ending her life instantly. The 37-year-old journalist had just parked her silver BMW in front of her renovated brownstone in Georgetown, Washington, D.C., and was reaching for her house keys when the killer struck. She never saw it coming. News of Emily's murder spread like wildfire across the capital, then the nation. As the face of Crime Scene America, the country's highest-rated true crime program, Emily had been invited into millions of homes every Thursday night for the past decade. Her warm smile and unflinching pursuit of justice had helped solve dozens of cold cases and brought closure to countless families. Now, in a cruel twist of fate, she had become the headline. Detective Marcus Harlow stood in Emily's doorway, watching the forensics team work. 20 years on the force hadn't prepared him for this. Not for Emily. They'd been colleagues, almost friends. She'd interviewed him multiple times for her show, always treating him with respect when so many journalists went for the jugular. "What do we know?" asked Captain Leanne Foster, ducking under the crime scene tape. "Single gunshot wound to the head, execution style," Harlow replied, his voice tight. "No witnesses so far. Time of death approximately 8:15 a.m. She was returning from her morning run at the park, according to her fitness tracker." "Professional hit?" Foster asked, surveying the scene. "Looks that way. Clean. Efficient." Harlow pointed to the distinct lack of shell casings. "Killer took the brass." Security cameras on the street were disabled 10 minutes before she arrived home. Foster sighed heavily. "The press is already swarming. Every network in the country wants answers yesterday. This is going to be a media circus, Harlow. I need your best work." "You'll get it," Harlow promised, though his stomach churned. Emily Rhodes had made powerful enemies throughout her career. The suspect list could include everyone from organized crime bosses to corrupt politicians she'd exposed, or even obsessed fans. The investigation would be a minefield. Back at the precinct, Harlow pinned Emily's photo to the center of the investigation board. Her bright eyes and confident smile made his chest tighten with resolve. He began connecting threads: her recent cases, personal relationships, threats received. The board quickly filled with potential leads. "We've got the preliminary ballistics report," Detective Sophia Reyes announced, dropping a file on Harlow's desk. 9mm round, likely from a Glock or similar. Professional-grade hollowpoint, designed to maximize damage. The shot was taken from less than 10 feet away. "Any prints on the doorbell or gate?" Harlow asked, flipping through the report. "Nothing. Wiped clean." Sophia hesitated. "There's something else. Emily received a letter 3 weeks ago at the network. It didn't trigger their security protocols because it contained no explicit threats, but in hindsight." She handed Harlow a photocopy. The letter was composed of magazine cutouts, ransom note style: "Watching you watch others. Justice comes for all." Why wasn't this flagged? Harlow demanded, anger rising in his throat. Emily received hundreds of letters every month. The security team said she dismissed it as another fan letter, albeit a creepy one. The following day, Harlow interviewed Emily's producer, Richard Keller, a wiry man with perpetually disheveled hair who couldn't stop fidgeting with his wedding ring. Emily was working on something big, Keller revealed, his voice barely above a whisper in the sterile interview room. "She wouldn't tell me details, said it was better if I didn't know yet. But it had her rattled. She'd been looking over her shoulder for weeks." "Did she leave any notes? Files?" Harlow pressed. "Nothing at the office. She was unusually cautious lately, keeping everything on an encrypted drive she carried with her." Keller's eyes widened. "The pendant. She always wore this silver pendant shaped like a key. It wasn't just jewelry, it was an actual flash drive. Have you found it?" Harlow felt a chill. The forensics inventory listed no such item among Emily's personal effects. The killer had taken it. That evening, as Harlow reviewed security footage from buildings near Emily's home, he noticed a peculiar pattern. A man in a baseball cap and maintenance uniform had been in the vicinity 3 times in the week before the murder, always at different times, always lingering just within view of Emily's front door. "Run facial recognition," he instructed the tech specialist, pointing to the grainy image. "Not much to work with," the specialist replied, "but I'll try enhancing it." 3 hours later, they had a potential match: Raymond Porter, age 42, former military with specialized training in covert operations. Dishonorable discharge 5 years ago for conduct unbecoming, details classified. Current employment: private security contractor for Sentinel Group, a firm known for taking morally ambiguous assignments for the right price. Dawn was breaking when Harlow and a tactical team surrounded Porter's apartment in Alexandria. The breach was textbook, until they found Porter face down on his kitchen floor, a bullet hole in the back of his head, execution style. The murder weapon sat neatly on the counter, wiped clean of prints. "Someone's cleaning house," Foster observed grimly when she arrived at the scene. Porter was a hired gun. Whoever employed him didn't want him talking. "There's more," Harlow said, leading her to Porter's bedroom. A wall was dedicated to surveillance photos of Emily, entering her building, jogging in the park, meeting sources at cafes. He'd been stalking her for at least a month. Professional surveillance. Harlow's phone buzzed with a text from Sophia, "Found something on Emily's laptop. Need to see you ASAP." At the precinct, Sophia had Emily's computer connected to a secure terminal. "Most of her recent research was deleted, but I recovered fragments from the cache." She was investigating Pinnacle Pharmaceuticals and their new wonder drug, Novarin. The miracle pain medication. Harlow frowned. "It's been all over the news. FDA approved, supposedly non-addictive." "Exactly. But Emily found evidence suggesting the clinical trials were manipulated. Side effects covered up, including several deaths. She was building a case that Pinnacle knowingly pushed a dangerous drug through approval by bribing officials." Harlow let out a low whistle. "Pinnacle is a multi-billion-dollar company with powerful connections in Washington." "It gets worse," Sophia continued. "Pinnacle's CEO, James Whitmore, has direct ties to Sentinel Group, the same security firm that employed Porter." The pieces were falling into place, but Harlow felt uneasy. It seemed too clean, too convenient. Something was still missing. A deep dive into Pinnacle revealed a labyrinth of shell companies and offshore accounts. Millions flowed to consulting firms that existed only on paper, one of which had hired Sentinel Group for special projects. As Harlow followed the money trail, another shocking connection emerged. Senator Howard Griffith, chair of the health committee that fast-tracked Novarin's approval, had received substantial campaign contributions from Pinnacle subsidiaries. More disturbing still, Griffith had been a frequent guest on Emily's show, cultivating a public image as a healthcare reformer. The investigation accelerated. Harlow obtained warrants for Whitmore's and Griffith's communications and financial records. Both men lawyered up immediately, releasing statements through their attorneys denying any wrongdoing or connection to Emily's murder. Then came the breakthrough. An anonymous whistleblower from Pinnacle contacted Harlow through an encrypted channel, providing documents that corroborated Emily's investigation. The files included internal memos discussing how to manage the problem she represented. One communication, dated just 3 days before her murder, chillingly stated, "The road situation requires immediate resolution before the Q2 report." Armed with this evidence, Harlow prepared to bring in Whitmore for questioning. But the morning of the planned arrest, news broke that the CEO had been found dead in his Manhattan penthouse, an apparent suicide. A note on his desk read simply, "I never wanted anyone to die." Senator Griffith, meanwhile, had fled the country on a private jet, destination unknown. What should have felt like progress instead left Harlow deeply troubled. The deaths were too convenient, the evidence too neatly aligned. It felt orchestrated, as if someone were feeding him a carefully constructed narrative. Late that night, as Harlow reviewed the case files in his dimly lit apartment, his secure line rang. The voice was disguised, impossible to identify. "You're looking in the right direction, detective, but not high enough. Emily discovered something bigger than Pinnacle, bigger than Griffith. What got her killed isn't what she published, it's what she was about to uncover." "Who is this?" Harlow demanded. "Someone who valued Emily Rhodes and what she stood for. Check her cloud storage. Password, Watergate Redex 1972. But be careful who you trust with what you find. They're watching you now, too." The line went dead. Harlow's hands trembled as he accessed Emily's cloud account using the provided password. It opened to reveal a trove of documents, audio recordings, and video files, Emily's insurance policy, hidden in plain sight. As Harlow began sifting through the material, the scope of Emily's investigation took his breath away. Pinnacle was merely one strand in a vast web connecting pharmaceutical companies, defense contractors, and high-ranking government officials. At the center of it all was a classified program codenamed Prometheus, a government-sanctioned testing of experimental drugs on unwitting subjects, including military personnel and prison populations. The implications were staggering. If Emily's allegations were true, dozens of prominent figures in business and politics were complicit in crimes against humanity. People with the resources and motivation to eliminate anyone threatening to expose them. The following morning, Harlow requested a private meeting with Captain Foster to share his findings, only to discover she'd been unexpectedly reassigned to a federal task force overnight. His new superior, Captain Reynolds, was a stranger who immediately suggested Harlow take some time off, citing concern about his objectivity in the Rhodes case. "This investigation is now being handled at the federal level," Reynolds informed him coolly. "Your services are no longer required. The official statement will cite Porter as Emily's killer, with Whitmore as the mastermind. Case closed." "That's not the whole truth," Harlow protested, careful not to reveal what he'd discovered. "It's enough truth for the public," Reynolds replied. "Don't make this difficult, detective. You have an exemplary record. It would be a shame to tarnish it now." The threat was unmistakable. Harlow nodded stiffly and cleared out his desk, making sure to leave no trace of Emily's files. As he drove home, he noticed a black SUV following him, making no attempt to be subtle. They were sending a message: back off or be next. Instead of going home, Harlow drove to a motel on the outskirts of town and paid cash for a room. There, he called the one person he still trusted, Sophia Reyes. "I need to go off the grid for a while," he told her. "The case is bigger than we imagined, and they're shutting it down from above." "I know," Sophia replied. "They've been pulling all our files since dawn. What are you going to do?" Harlow thought of Emily, of her relentless pursuit of truth no matter the cost. What Emily would do. Follow the evidence wherever it leads. That got her killed, Sophia reminded him softly. Then I'll be more careful. Harlow paused. I can't ask you to risk your career. I became a detective to find justice, not to look the other way, Sophia interrupted. Tell me what you need. 3 days later, a nondescript package arrived at the offices of the Washington Post, addressed to Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative journalist Michael Faraday. It contained a hard drive with Emily Rhodes' complete investigation, along with additional evidence gathered by Harlow. An enclosed note read, Emily Rhodes was killed to prevent this story from coming to light. Don't let her die in vain. Faraday spent weeks verifying the explosive claims before publishing the first in a series of articles that would shake the foundations of Washington. The public outcry was immediate and deafening. Congressional hearings were announced. Several implicated officials resigned. Others disappeared before they could be questioned. Harlow watched the unfolding events from a distance, constantly moving, always looking over his shoulder. He had no illusions about the danger he faced. The people behind Prometheus had tentacles reaching into every level of government and law enforcement. His career was over, his old life forfeit. Yet even as he lived in the shadows, tips and evidence continued to find their way to Faraday's desk, meticulously documented and verified. The Prometheus story grew, revealing darker and more extensive corruption than initially reported. 6 months after Emily's murder, as the scandal continued to dominate headlines, Harlow received a heavily encrypted message on one of his burner phones: "If you want to finish what Emily started, come to the reflecting pool at dawn. Come alone." Despite every instinct warning him of a trap, Harlow went. As the first light of day glimmered on the water, he spotted a familiar figure waiting on a bench, Captain Leanne Foster. "I thought you were part of this," Harlow said warily, keeping his distance. "I was transferred to keep me quiet," Foster replied. "But I've been working from the inside, gathering names, evidence. The conspiracy is unraveling, but the most dangerous players are still out there." She handed him a thumb drive. "This identifies the original architects of Prometheus and their current locations. Emily was getting close to them when she was killed. Why give this to me? Why not Faraday or the special prosecutor?" Foster's eyes were hollow with exhaustion. "Because we still don't know how high this goes or who can be trusted. You're already a ghost, Harlow. You can go places and do things those bound by the system can't." As the sun rose over the Capitol, Harlow weighed the thumb drive in his palm. He could walk away now, disappear permanently. Or he could continue the mission that had cost Emily her life, knowing it might demand the same price from him. "What would you do?" he asked Foster. She gazed across the reflecting pool toward the Lincoln Memorial. "I think you already know the answer to that, or you wouldn't be here." Harlow nodded slowly. Emily had chosen truth over safety. So had he. And while justice for her murder remained incomplete, her legacy lived on in the investigation she'd begun and in those determined to finish it, whatever the cost. He pocketed the drive and walked away, a solitary figure against the awakening city, carrying a burden of truth too dangerous to release and too important to abandon. Somewhere in the shadows, the architects of Prometheus were watching, planning, perhaps preparing to silence him as they had Emily. But they had underestimated her in life. Now, they were underestimating the power of her legacy. The wheels of justice turned slowly, but they were turning. And Harlow would make sure they didn't stop until the last domino fell. As he disappeared into the morning crowds, one question remained: in a conspiracy so vast and powerful, with enemies lurking in the highest offices of the land, could the truth ever truly prevail? Or was Emily Rhodes just the first casualty in a war that had only begun to claim its victims?